Couple things. First, no disrespect to any of the victims. And warning, some of these images may be disturbing. But that's what we're here for, so let's kick it! If that picture gives you feelings, there's a reason why. There's also a reason why artists make composites look the way they do. The reasons are unrelated. It's really just a weird thing. And we're going to talk about those reasons in a minute. But let's find out this woman's story first. On January 27th, 1993, a 10-year-old girl and a 12-year-old girl found a disembodied head dangling in the bushes in a park near Ina, Illinois. The head looked as if it had been just thrown from the roadway. The rest of the body has never been found. It took DNA and 29 years to solve the mystery. On February 11th, 2022, authorities announced that the head had been identified through DNA as belonging to Susan Lund, who was 25 years old when she went missing December 24th, 1992, after leaving her apartment building to go to a Winn-Dixie in Clarksville, Tennessee. Now, she had went missing in Tennessee a month prior to being partially found in southern Illinois, and the medical examiner had said that she hadn't been dead for longer than a couple days, up to 2 weeks. So what the hell happened in this time? Well, that's for another video. But why was the composite drawn that way? So extreme. The medical examiner had discovered that Susan had wry neck, or torticollis, which can cause your neck to become almost stuck, and then moving your head to a neutral position can be quite painful. So those with the condition tend to keep their head tilted a little bit. When an unidentified person has a thing about them that makes them a little unique, often those features and or conditions will be exaggerated by the composite artist, so they'll trigger a recognition, either to witnesses or those who had known the person. Let's look at the sketch of the suspect in the Lake Bodom murders. The Lake Bodom murders is one of the most infamous unsolved murders in Finnish criminal history. On June 5th, 1960, at Bodom Lake in Espoo, Uusimaa, that's a tongue twister, Mela Bjorklund and Anja Maki, both aged 15, and Seppo Boisman, aged 18, were killed by stabbing and blunt force trauma to their heads while they were sleeping inside of a tent. The fourth member of the group, Nils Gustafsson, then aged 18, was found outside the tent with broken facial bones and stab wounds. Despite extensive investigations, the killer was never found. I mean, I'm worn out from that. That was a lot of work to say. That was. The suspect sketch, his lips and jaw seemed to be exaggerated. There was a photo taken at the funeral of one of the victims, and it appears a dead ringer, of the suspect sketch was in attendance. Although cleared by police, Hans Assmann looks like a good suspect to me. He claimed to be in Germany when the murders took place, but he showed up in a hospital in Helsinki the next day, covered in blood and acting aggressively. He's also linked to a couple other unsolved murders. So that's an explanation why some composites are drawn the way they are, but sometimes the composite artists are just working with what they got. On November 16th, 1969, the body of a woman was found in some dense brushland off Mulholland Drive in Los Angeles, California, by a 15-year-old boy who was bird watching. And that's just so wholesome. Jeez, that poor kid. The victim had died of multiple stab wounds, predominantly in her neck area, 2 days before she was discovered. In total, she had 157 wounds coming from a penknife, or what I would call a pocket knife. And I mean, geez, that is vicious. vicious. The Manson family had been questioned in relation to the case, and yeah, I can see why. No identification was found with the body, so a composite artist was brought in to give it a shot. This had been a pretty big case, so the composite artist was just doing the best he could to bring life into an already decomposing victim. Another warning. Next is an actual picture of Reet when she was found and some of her belongings that were found with her. If that's not your get down, just skip ahead a few seconds. I had really debated whether or not to use that picture of Reet, but I went ahead and did it because I thought that was really the best way for you to get a clear idea of why the composite looked the way it did. Her composite is a little bit creepy just because of the way she's holding her head. It's a little bit like Ina Jane Doe, but maybe less severe, but still creepy. She would be known as Jane Doe number 59 until June 2015. Then she was recognized by a family friend who had been scrolling through the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, or NamUs. Finally, this beautiful girl has been identified, but her killer has never been found. Derrick Todd Lee, also known as the Baton Rouge serial killer, was active between 1992 and 2003. Lee murdered 7 women in the Baton Rouge, Louisiana area. Prior to his murder charges, Lee had been arrested for stalking women and watching them in their homes. And what's so creepy about this composite is, could you imagine seeing that face peeking in through your window? This composite was put together from witness accounts, and although it's met on accuracy, if a witness had looked at that composite and said, yeah, that's about right, that's terrifying. Same goes for the next bad guy, except this one's never been caught. An offender dubbed Mr. Cruel attacked 4 little girls in Melbourne, Australia from 1987 to 1991. He abducted 3 of the girls from their homes in front of their terrified families. Being very careful to hide his identity behind a chilling black balaclava with white stitching, Mr. Cruel's face was not seen by any of his child victims, their parents, or their siblings. His first victim was assaulted in her home with her parents, who were bound and gagged. They were just nearby. It's awful. It's awful. The next 2 were abducted, but they returned home. The 4th, Carmaine Chan, a 13-year-old little girl, was snatched from her home after her sisters were forced into a wardrobe. Later, she was found shot 3 times in the head. As with Derrick Todd Lee, imagine seeing that face while being attacked and only being 11 years old. Please find that guy. I need to grab him by the face, reach in that balaclava, and pull his spine right out through his mouth. Now I guess it's time to talk about why some composites make us feel the way they do. But to do that, we're going to have to take a trip to Uncanny Valley. Uncanny Valley isn't really a place you go to. It's a whole vibe. Aesthetically speaking, it's a hypothesized relationship between an object's degree of resemblance to a human being and the emotional response that we give to it. In other words, if what you're looking at doesn't quite perfectly resemble an actual human being, it will provoke uncanny or eerie feelings of uneasiness and revulsion. The valley part of it represents a dip in our natural liking or sympathy for what we're looking at. The more like a living, breathing person, in this case the composites, look like, the better we feel about them. It's not like your Roomba is gonna start freaking you out, although I did put eyes on mine. This was during lockdown, and I named him, and I made him more of a companion, and I don't know if I'm going to leave this part in. Anyway, a certain movement or gesture, like a nod of a robotic head, or the blink of a mechanical eye, or the way silicone dimples on an artificial cheek can quickly make a person feel uneasy. There are a lot of examples of Uncanny Valley, especially in robotics. The term was actually coined by a roboticist named Masahiro Mori.
My name is Actor. Nice to meet you.
Are you married?
I'm looking for the right guy. Someone with a heart of gold and brain circuits to match.
There's a whole subreddit that's dedicated to Uncanny Valley. So if you want to lose an afternoon going, then head on over. The next couple of pictures aren't composites, but actual photos found in a hotel room of a still unidentified woman who had self-unalived. This first photo itself is creepy, but I think the one that unsettles me the most is the pic of her outfit that she was still wearing, but her body had clearly been edited out. Brick yourself. On June 3rd, 1991, a local truck driver named Eduardo Collin arrived at a Super 8 motel in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He rented a room for 2 people for a one-night stay and was expected to check out at 11 a.m. the following day. Eduardo provided legitimate information on the registration slip except for a false vehicle license plate number. Eduardo was given room 233. On June 5th, it was realized that Eduardo had failed to check out of his room, so a security guard went to check the room. He found the room locked from the inside, so he had to use a screwdriver to get inside. When he got inside, he didn't really notice anything unusual apart from multiple alcohol bottles that were sitting on the table. However, in the bathroom, he discovered the body of a woman hanging in the shower. The woman had hanged herself using a suitcase strap, and there was heroin in her system. She is believed to have died on June 3rd, the day Eduardo had checked in. The woman was severely decomposed. However, a photograph found on the table is believed to have shown her. It would be several years before Eduardo's family could be located. By the time they had been discovered, he had died of natural causes. Eduardo's family was shown the photograph. They confirmed that Eduardo was not the man in the photograph, and they had no idea who the woman was. A scale was found on the room's table with the name George Martinez written on it. It is believed that the scale may have been used to weigh packages of drugs. George Martinez is a pretty common name. The man in the photo has never been identified. And who writes their name on their scale? Imagine the cops show up. You can't be like, no, that's not mine. Because they'd be like, yeah, George Martinez, it is. Anyway, there has been a somewhat recent development in the case. In March of 2021, investigators received a tip that the woman's name may have been Becca and that she may have been from Los Angeles County, specifically in the Sylmar and Reseda area. She reportedly flew to Albuquerque from Los Angeles or Burbank. This next one is both disturbing and heartbreaking. On February 25th, 1957, the body of a little boy wrapped in a plaid blanket was found in the woods off Susquehanna Road in Fox Chase, Philadelphia. The body was discovered by a young man checking his muskrat traps. Fearing that the police would confiscate his traps, the young man did not report what he'd found. Over muskrats? A few days later, a college student spotted a rabbit running into the underbrush. Knowing that there were traps back there, he stopped his car to investigate. This person also feared contact with the police, and he did not report to the police what he found. What goes on in Philadelphia? He did report to police the following day after hearing about Mary Jane Barker, a missing child out of New Jersey. The little boy was unclothed and was inside a cardboard box that had once held a bassinet that used to be sold at JCPenney. The little boy's hair had recently been cropped, possibly after death, as there were clumps of hair clinging to his body. There were signs of extensive beatings, severe malnutrition, as well as some surgical scars. That poor lamb. There was a huge media push, and posters with a post-mortem photo of the little boy were distributed. Still, the child remained unidentified for decades. Finally, on November 30th, 2022, the Philadelphia Police Department announced that they had identified the child through the use of DNA and genealogical databases, but the name wasn't yet given. On December 8th, 2022, more than 65 years after the body was found, the boy was publicly identified as Joseph Augustus Zarelli during a press conference held by the Philadelphia Police Department. Law enforcement also stated that Joseph's death is still an active homicide investigation and that they still need the public's help. Law enforcement also reported that both of Joseph's biological parents are deceased, but the child has living half-siblings, and that Joseph's mother had given birth 3 times in Philadelphia between 1944 and 1956. At that same December 2022 press conference, Philadelphia law enforcement stated that Joseph had lived in the area of 61st and Market Streets. "I don't know what the neighbors knew or didn't know," said the head of the Philadelphia Police Homicide Unit, Captain Jason Smith. The child did live past the age of 4 years old, so there would have been somebody out there that would have seen this child, perhaps another family member that hasn't stepped forward, possibly a neighbor that remembers seeing the child and remembers whatever was occurring at that particular household. In January of 2023, NBC 10 Philadelphia reported that Joseph was, quote, born to a couple that lived at 64th and Callow Hill, end quote. Although the channel stated that it was unclear if he'd been living there long enough for anyone to even notice him. Rest in peace, baby. This last composite is really just to lighten things up a little bit, and I mean a little bit. This composite of Richard Ramirez isn't particularly creepy or accurate, unless of course you're Lou Reed, then it is both terrifying and accurate. I'm hoping there's enough people out there that still know who Lou Reed is and how funny this is. I mean, at least it tickled me. Even though these pictures resulted from terrible, terrible things, it's totally normal and totally okay and totally doesn't mean you can't be sympathetic to victims if you feel a little repulsed. It's really just hardwired biology, and we can't do much about that. So remember, be cool to others and be cool to yourself, especially if you shudder or even laugh inappropriately, because I do care about what happens to you. Bye.